June 25, 1876. The Montana Territory. A Lakota holy man closes his eyes and sees a vision that will change American history forever. He sees soldiers falling from the sky like grasshoppers, hundreds of them. Their ears are deaf to warnings, and within days, his vision will come true. This is the story of Tatanka Iyotake, the man the world would know as Sitting Bull, a warrior, a prophet, a father who watched his son die in his arms, and the chief who united the fractured Sioux Nation against impossible odds. But this isn't just a story about battles and bloodshed. It's about a man who fought for his people's survival and paid the ultimate price. A man whose final words would echo through history. "I am not going. Do with me what you will." By the time you finish this video, you'll understand why the U.S. government feared him more than any other Native leader, and why his legacy still matters today. This is the untold story of Sitting Bull, the chief who united the Sioux Nation. Around 1831, near the Grand River in present-day South Dakota, a boy was born into the Hunkpapa Lakota tribe. They didn't call him Sitting Bull yet. His birth name was Jumping Badger, Hunkeshni. His father, Returns Again, was a respected warrior. His mother, her Holy Door, came from a line of medicine people. From birth, this boy was destined for something greater. The Lakota people believed that certain children were touched by Wakantanka, the Great Spirit. As a child, Jumping Badger was different. While other boys played games, he sat quietly, watching everything. He listened to the elders, he studied the movements of animals, and he showed an unusual patience for someone so young. At age 10, he killed his first buffalo. But what happened next revealed his true character. Instead of celebrating his achievement, he gave all the meat away to widows and elders who couldn't hunt. The tribe noticed this boy had the heart of a leader. At 14, during his first war party against the Crow tribe, traditional enemies of the Lakota, Jumping Badger counted coup. He struck an enemy warrior with a stick, the highest honor in Plains warfare. His father was so proud he gave his son a new name at the victory ceremony, Tatanka Iyotake, Sitting Bull, a name that meant a buffalo bull sitting on its haunches, immovable, impossible to ignore. But the world this young warrior was born into was about to change forever. For thousands of years, the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota peoples, collectively known as the Sioux Nation, lived in relative balance with neighboring tribes. They fought, they traded, they survived according to ancient traditions. But in the 1840s and 50s, something unprecedented began. White settlers started flooding westward, first in hundreds, then thousands, then tens of thousands. The California Gold Rush, Manifest Destiny, the promise of free land. And they brought something with them that would devastate the Plains tribes more than any army: disease. Smallpox swept through Lakota camps like wildfire. Cholera, measles, diseases the people had no immunity to. Sitting Bull was in his 20s when he watched entire families die in days. Children, elders, warriors. The death toll was catastrophic. Some estimates suggest that up to half of the Plains tribes died from disease in the 1850s. But the real breaking point came in 1862. Sitting Bull was 31 years old. He had taken a wife, he had children, and then he witnessed something that would haunt him forever. White miners and settlers began illegally entering Lakota territory, violating every treaty. They killed buffalo for sport, leaving carcasses to rot. They brought whiskey and violence, and when the Lakota defended their lands, The U.S. Army responded with overwhelming force. Between 1863 and 1868, Sitting Bull became what the U.S. military would call hostile. But to his people, he was something else, a protector, a warrior willing to fight impossible odds to preserve their way of life. He led raid after raid against army forts and settler wagon trains, not out of cruelty, out of survival. Every attack was strategic. Every battle was about sending a message. This is our land. These are our hunting grounds, and we will not surrender. But Sitting Bull was more than just a warrior. By his mid-30s, he had become a Wichasha Wakan, a holy man, a spiritual leader. He had visions, dreams that came true, and the people began to see him as someone chosen by the spirits. In 1868, the U.S. government offered a treaty, the Fort Laramie Treaty. It promised that the Black Hills, Paha Sapa, the sacred center of the Lakota world, would belong to the Sioux forever. Forever. Some chiefs signed. They believed the promises. They thought peace was possible. Red Cloud signed. Spotted Tail signed. But Sitting Bull refused. He knew better. He had seen too many broken promises. He told his people, "The white man knows how to make everything, but he does not know how to distribute it. He makes one man rich and another poor." He saw what was coming. And in 1874, his worst fears were confirmed. Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer led an expedition into the Black Hills in 1874. His mission was supposedly to find a location for a new fort, but what he really found was gold. When news broke that there was gold in the Black Hills, everything changed. Thousands of prospectors flooded into Lakota territory, illegally. The treaty meant nothing. The promises meant nothing. The sacred lands were being invaded. The U.S. government made a half-hearted attempt to buy the Black Hills. They offered $6 million. The Lakota refused, so the government changed tactics. In December 1875, the Commissioner of Indian Affairs issued an order. All Sioux not settled on reservations by January 31, 1976, will be considered hostile and subject to military action. They gave the Lakota 1 month in the middle of winter to abandon their lands or be killed. It was an impossible deadline designed to fail, and the message was clear. We don't want peace, we want your land, and we're willing to kill you for it. Sitting Bull's response was simple. He sent word to every Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho band he could reach. Come to the Powder River. We will stand together. We will not surrender. By the spring of 1876, something unprecedented was happening. Lakota bands that had never united before began to gather. The Hook-Papa, the Oglala, the Miniconjou, the Sans Arc Sioux, the Blackfeet Sioux, the Cheyenne, the Arapaho. Thousands of Native Americans came together in what would become the largest gathering of Plains Indians in recorded history. Estimates range from 7,000 to 10,000 people. At least 1,500 to 2,000 were warriors. And at the center of it all was Sitting Bull. Not because he demanded leadership, not because he seized power, but because the people chose him. He was named the Supreme Chief of the Allied Tribes, something that had never happened before. But leadership came with a price. Sitting Bull had already lost 2 wives to disease. His children lived under constant threat, and now he was responsible for thousands of lives. The weight of it was crushing.
In June 1876, before the decisive battle, Sitting Bull participated in a sun dance ceremony. For 2 days he danced without food or water. He offered 100 pieces of his own flesh cut from his arms as a sacrifice to Wakan Tonka. And then he had the vision. soldiers falling upside down from the sky like grasshoppers. June 25, 1876, the Little Bighorn River in Montana Territory. The Lakota called it the Greasy Grass. It's early afternoon. The camp is massive, stretching for 3 miles along the river valley. General George Custer, leading the 7th Cavalry, has tracked the camp. He's under orders to wait for reinforcements, but Custer wants glory. He wants to be the man who defeats the hostile Indians. So he divides his forces into 3 groups and attacks immediately. What Custer doesn't know is that he's attacking the largest concentration of native warriors ever assembled, and they're not running, they're fighting back. Sitting Bull, at 45 years old, doesn't personally lead the charge. Younger warriors like Crazy Horse and Gall do that. But Sitting Bull's presence is everywhere. He protects the women and children. He rallies the warriors. He makes sure no one panics. The battle lasts less than an hour. Custer's immediate command, over 200 soldiers, is completely wiped out. Custer himself is killed. The vision came true. It was the greatest military victory Native Americans ever achieved against the U.S. Army, and it was also the beginning of the end. Because America doesn't forgive defeats, and the revenge that was coming would be absolute.
After Little Bighorn, the U.S. government unleashed total war on the Plains tribes. General William Tecumseh Sherman, the man who burned Atlanta during the Civil War, was put in charge. His orders were clear: hunt them down, starve them out, break them. Through the winter of 1876 to 77, the Army pursued the scattered bands relentlessly. They burned villages, they killed the buffalo herds, they attacked in the middle of winter when families were most vulnerable. One by one, the chiefs surrendered. Crazy Horse surrendered. Red Cloud had already surrendered years before. But not Sitting Bull. In May 1877, he led his remaining followers, about 1,000 people, mostly women, children, and elders, north across the border into Canada, the Grandmother's Land, named after Queen Victoria. The Canadian government allowed them to stay, but offered no support, no food, no supplies, just permission to exist. For 4 years, Sitting Bull and his people lived in exile. They hunted what little game remained. They struggled through brutal winters. Children starved. And slowly, his people began to leave. Hunger is a powerful enemy. Families would slip away in the night, heading back south to surrender at the reservations. The Great Alliance was crumbling. By 1881, Sitting Bull had only about 200 followers left, and he faced an impossible choice. July 19, 1881, Fort Buford, Dakota Territory. Sitting Bull, now 50 years old, walked into the fort to surrender. But he wouldn't do it himself. He handed his rifle to his young son, Crowfoot, and had the boy give it to the commanding officer. His message was clear. I wish it to be remembered that I was the last man of my tribe to surrender my rifle, and this is the reason I do it. I want this peace to last. I want the children to have a chance. They sent him to Standing Rock Reservation in South Dakota, the same land where he was born, but now it was a prison. The buffalo were gone. The freedom was gone. The old way of life was gone. For the next few years, Sitting Bull tried to adapt. In 1885, he even joined Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, traveling to major cities, ironically playing the role of the savage chief for white audiences. He made good money, and he gave almost all of it away to homeless children in the cities he visited. Annie Oakley, the famous sharpshooter, became friends with him. She later said, "He was kind to everyone. The newspapers made him a monster, but he was the gentlest man I ever met." But peace was not to be. In 1890, a spiritual movement swept through the reservations. The ghost dance. A Paiute holy man named Wovoka had a vision. If the native peoples performed this sacred dance, the white men would disappear, the buffalo would return, and the ancestors would come back to life. It was a message of hope in a time of absolute despair, and desperate people embraced it. Across reservations, people danced, they believed, they prayed, and the U.S. government panicked.
Indian agents saw the ghost dance as a rebellion. They feared another uprising, and they knew that as long as Sitting Bull was alive, he was a symbol of resistance. So they decided to arrest him. December 15, 1890, before dawn, Indian police, Lakota men working for the U.S. government, surrounded Sitting Bull's cabin at Standing Rock Reservation. They dragged him outside. His followers tried to stop them, and then gunfire, chaos. In the confusion, Sitting Bull was shot in the head and chest. His 17-year-old son, Crowfoot, the same boy who surrendered the rifle 9 years earlier, was killed trying to protect his father. Sitting Bull's last words as they dragged him from his home were, "I am not going. Do with me what you will." 2 weeks later, the Wounded Knee Massacre occurred. U.S. troops killed nearly 300 Lakota men, women, and children. The ghost dance was over, the resistance was crushed, and the chapter of the American frontier officially closed. But Sitting Bull's story didn't end there. In death, he became more powerful than he ever was in life. He became a symbol, a reminder, a warning. He represents something America has always struggled with: the cost of empire, the price of expansion, the blood that built this nation. His story forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. Who were the real savages? Who broke the treaties? Who killed the children? Today, Sitting Bull's descendants still fight for native rights. They fight for clean water, for land rights, for recognition. The battle he started isn't over. Sitting Bull once said, "Inside of me there are two dogs. One is mean and evil, and the other is good. The mean dog fights the good dog all the time." When asked which one wins, he replied, "The one I feed the most."